further than that. You can list out a heavy set of interests, and I'd say perhaps most importantly, you can post updates, and you can say what your current interests are. In this rapid environment, where quite often our descriptions of ourselves that may exist on directories become outdated very quickly, this is a great way to be a real live status of who you are, and it's a great way to use to find others that share similar interests. So let's move on. Next up here, we're looking at the groups. We call them groups, and they're sometimes called communities within the Connections environment. And groups are a way of really pulling together content on a particular topic. When you set up a group, as you can see here in the screenshot, I've just pointed out a few points here. When you set up a group, you can collect all the different components within a group, whether you want a blog, whether you want bookmarks, wikis, whether you're interested in activities. It's up to you how you define what actually gets added in terms of the components in your group. And you can add and take those out as the group evolves. You can also add other social elements. The groups are one area where you can customize these to a larger degree and use it as a way to reach out and build connections with other networks. If you have a public group, you may want to link out to networks such as Facebook and Twitter to link those together. And you can customize groups as well in terms of it allow you to move elements around. If you're heavily blogging, you may want to move the blog widget higher up the page, so that's what most people see when they visit the group. It could be that the wiki is the best place for where you really are building out most of the content, and that's the area that you'd want to focus on. Just a few points about groups. They can be public or private, so do think as if you are setting up a group, think of what you're sharing, and whether if it's confidential, make sure that you lock it down. And this relates to on the developer work side, where we have some teams that prefer to keep their groups private, and will use developer work, say, as a way to communicate. Maybe it's between an internal IBM team together with one of our partners. In other instances, teams are using public groups, and they use it as a space to build out their presence on the web. Quite often, and you can have your team blog could be handled through connections on DeveloperWorks, plus also background bookmarks and other links. The groups, quite often, what we see on DeveloperWorks, the groups are often effectively become the home pages, and it's where a lot of people spend a lot of their experience within Connections. Quite often you'll come across new groups, and by searching, and that will take you through the group homepage. And quite often, every piece of asset within the group, whether you're within a blog, whether you're in a wiki, when you click on the homepage for that asset, it will take you to the homepage of the group. So it's quite often a heavy navigational page that's used, that we see used as people navigate throughout our Connections environment on DeveloperWorks. And as I pointed out earlier, you can also use widgets, and you can embed the code into the group in order to connect it to other networks. So let's move on. Next up is blogs. A great way to share and discover ideas. I'd say if you're looking at, say, for instance, comparing with, say, the email world. And an email environment, where in the past quite often we'd send out, say, announcements or messages could get handled, say, through an email. You'd send them out as a single email. It may be one email. It may be that you forgot to include somebody, so you have to forward that email on. It could be that others that find it and want to forward it to people in their own networks, they would then have to forward that email on. So in some respects, emails can be tricky in terms of archival, in terms of having a common repository of knowledge that everyone has access to. So in terms of, I'd say it's one area where blogs can really score when it comes to productivity. If you do have announcements you're putting out that you find yourself putting out regularly, if as one top blogger once put it to me, he was a marketing executive that found himself sending a lot of emails to his sales force, explaining them new product features, explaining them what they should be highlighting with customers. He started to realize that, well, rather than send the same email time and time again to different people, why don't I just blog about it? And that's what he started doing. That started him off, and he's become one of the top bloggers in his space at the moment. But it's something that's ideal for where you have information to share across a large audience, and it's information that you find yourself perhaps repeating. It's a great place to hold that information. You can always refer back to it in the future. The blog itself, in terms of looking at the screenshot here, blog name will define the content. It's a good, I'd suggest optimizing titles, really thinking through titles, and although it's great to come up with catchy terms or maybe use a quote from Oscar Wilde or whatever it may be, it can be useful also to make sure you get some keywords in there, something that relates to the content you have, because it will help people find that information. Likewise, tagging as well, making sure that you tag the content efficiently, and especially for blogging. It's particularly important to make sure that you use appropriate tags, just in terms of helping you maximize your information being found by the people that can really use it and gain from it. So as I pointed out, great for announcements, great for thought leadership and reaching out to prospects. We see a lot of that on DeveloperWorks with a lot of our public blogs. And again, with our public blogs, you are looking at being not just part of a community on DeveloperWorks that's on IBM Connections. You're also part of the blogosphere, and effectively part of that wider organization. So, for instance, the blogs would show up on a Google blog search or through Technorati if people still decide to use that particular search engine. Let's move on. Files. The files application, again, if we go back to, say, comparing files with, say, with emails, I know in my life, and maybe the same for yourselves, where you find that you spend a lot of your time dealing with attachments, having to move around large files, having to, again, send it to one person, having to realize you forgot somebody, and then having to forward a message and waiting for attachments to both upload to a mail server and download back to your mail client as the person that's receiving them. Within the files application, it's a great way to host files and to leave it in a central spot so anyone can go and pick them up, regardless of where they, whether you remembered them the first time or you've just thought of them as you're eating your lunch. You can use files as a great way to think, okay, right, I just need the link to that file. I can just pass that around to whoever needs it. So a wonderful way of sharing large files. Again, for us within DeveloperWorks, we see both public and private instances of this, where in some instances public files are put out there where people want to share information with the larger, with the world at large, and private files is a great way of sharing information between ourselves and partners and suppliers and other organizations. So let's move on. Next up, wikis. Wikis, collaboratively creating documents. The wiki platform within Connections supports rich content. Allows you to add tables, images, upload documents directly into the wiki, all without having to write a single line of HTML. There's a navigational system that I'd say bear in mind when you're putting together your wiki in terms of rather than building out one massive long page of text, I think to head it up and to provide modules. It's both easier to find and it's easier to navigate through for users. In terms of the hierarchy, it can be nested. I'd say beware from going too crazy on this and building a huge multi-leveled organization of documents within a wiki. It will become increasingly difficult to maintain as the wiki grows and ages. But the wikis themselves are ideal for documentation, especially when you're working with teams that may be split either geographically, maybe on different time zones, maybe even just in different parts of a building. It's wonderful in terms of allowing somebody to say, okay, this is what I think, this is what I'm thinking it should be. Maybe it's a user's manual as the product's developing. And it's a great way where other team members can go on there and they can give their own feedback and add their own thoughts, comments, and just be able to use the document as a way to communicate, as opposed to potentially emailing around, say, large Word documents or other files. So let's jump ahead. Bookmarks, and we see a lot of bookmarks being added on our DeveloperWorks environment. We actually have tools that will add bookmarks for a lot of our content that comes through the static part of our site. So we have editors that produce effectively static articles, not within the Connections environment. We use a tool that we've built via the API to post to the bookmarks application for us, so that every time a new article comes out, it appears in bookmarks with the appropriate tagging, so it can be found through that route. We see this used heavily for, say, group owners. We'll use bookmarks as a way to share links to other places of note. It could be that you want to point people to a product page. It could be that you want to point people to maybe external documentation. But whichever it is, bookmarks are a great way to share external links. And then just a further final point here is that also remember tagging and using the use of tagging to organize bookmarks. So let's jump ahead. Activities, I won't go too much into this one, but activities are a great way to share information and to especially around a project. So it's a simple project planning application. I'd say the real benefit here is that you can use activities to, and rather than having one project manager that has to talk often and collect notes and update the project plan which they're owners of, within this application you can allow each individual stakeholder to go in and update their own status, to add new elements when they know that there's new, say if they have new tasks that they need to add to a specific section. And it's great because you can actually organize the content, and you can set up sections. You can keep it defined, so you don't have to, so you don't just see a huge laundry list of everything that you need to do and start freaking out. So let's move on. I'll just point through a few examples here in terms of how we see DeveloperWorks helping. One is in terms of members. That in terms of our membership, it helps for us here at DeveloperWorks. It helps our members, our audience, our prospects find the right products. We have a strong skill building mission. We do a lot of that training, a lot of passing of information via Connections. Helps with development and sharing knowledge among others. And for our partners, where we see it as a way of improving product development. Again, it's a way to reach new audiences as well, particularly with public groups and public components. And it's a way to accelerate time to market, to gather feedback, and to really build out plans, say maybe across IBM and across a partner. For IBM ourselves, we see it as a way it really does increase productivity. It allows us to interact between ourselves. We're quite a large organization, and also to interact with our partners. It's a great way of being able to run through products in a way that allows us to move at speed and get feedback, innovate faster, and also to build up our own audience and constituency. So with that, let's move ahead.